I think Clint too, like Clint really has a specific sound. So I was listening to a lot of what he was producing and I was like, this is the sound that I want. This is the sound that I have in my head. So I think if I were to give any kind of advice to someone starting out, it's like find someone who's producing stuff that you feel would align with your product.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Release Day Series podcast. I'm your host, Alex Heward, and I am thrilled to be here today with a great conversation that I had with Newfoundland singer-songwriter Jenny Mallard. We're going to talk about her debut album, Into the Deep, which was released on November 25th, 2022. And on January 27th, 2023, she actually released a song from that album called The Anchor as a single. And I love this approach, and I know that Alicia Toner has done this as well, a previous guest, where you release a single post-album release. Ride the wave, people. And that's exactly what we talk about with Jenny. Not only that, but we talk about the concept of this album. It is, I say it terribly when we're talking about it, but it's so good, the journey that she takes you on. But man, the songs are so personal and so real and sad once you get near the back end of the album. But then it ends with just a layer of hope that is not only indicative of moving on in your personal journey, but also in her musical journey. And we have a wonderful conversation about the creation of this album. There's some amazing country sounds, folk sounds, and traditional sounds that come across on this record, and I just love everything about it. One of the other things we talk about is Jenny's struggle with bipolar disorder, and the thing that is really cool about this is she says it's not a struggle, but she looks at it as her superpower. Jenny does a lot of writing to help get her thoughts out of her head onto paper and to really turn her emotions into music. And it's such a beautiful way that she puts it. And I'm going to let her describe that to you, and you can hear that in our conversation coming up next. And remember, you can always go to our website, releasedayseries.com, check out past podcast episodes as well as our limited video series, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter that I say is bi-weekly, but you get it when you get it, folks. I'm just going to be honest. So, broadcasting from the traditional territory of the Williams Treaties First Nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, Inuit, and Métis peoples, this is my conversation with Jenny Mallard. Jenny, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time. You're kicking 2023 off with a bang here, eh?
Yeah, it's been a busy 2022, but even busier 2023. So
awesome. It was funny. I just before we hit play here, I had to make sure I got your last name correct, Mallard, and you mentioned it's like the duck, and the only reason why I'm saying this, Jenny, is because we actually have something in common here. My last name, Heward, is actually French, Huard, and it means loon.
Okay, yeah.
So we both have. We both have ducks.
That's amazing.
We love birds for last names. So, yeah. I don't want to use the word foul because that's I'm not a big fan of that word. But, yeah. Just thought I'd break the ice with you on that one.
That's amazing. Do you, follow it up when you talk? Like the loon in French?
No, I don't. I actually try. I'm not embarrassed by it, but sometimes it's kind of funny. My son will be like, "Hey, here's a loony. By the way, did you know a loony and Heward, they're kind of one and the same." So we have fun with it, but I don't really brag about it. Maybe I should take more pride in my last name being Loon.
I think you should.
Yeah, I think I should. Yeah. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, it's busy 2022. You starting out 2023 with the release of your single, The Anchor. How's that been? How's that going for you? How's this release of this single been taking shape?
Yeah. So we've been working with Bad Parade up in Ontario. And they're absolutely phenomenal. So they took this song, they pitched it to a bunch of people. I don't even know the full process of what a publicist does.
That's why you hire a publicist.
That's why you hire a publicist. But no, she's great. Carrie's great, and she took it, and we've been getting podcasts, we've been getting interviews, we've been getting, I just got a request for a TV show, so like it's going really good, and it's my first ever time working with a publicist. So we took that song off the album. She thought that was one of the stronger songs just for starting out. It's more of the commercial sounding song. It's a love song, So, and so Carrie's been taking that and pitching it all across Canada in the big cities and the small cities, and really just getting me some opportunities to talk about my music and talk about the process of songwriting and talk about what the song really means.
That's very cool. And the reception for like a lot of people taking interest in the song, not me, obviously me included, but outside of that.
Yeah. And I think what really resonates with people is a lot of my brand and a lot of who I am in my songwriting is from authenticity. So I write from a place of true meaning and things that happen to me. So this song was actually written because of the things that I've went through. All my songs have been. So on my first album anyway, we'll see about the second one. But yeah, the first one is all lived experience. So I think people are really taking a liking to that and can really resonate with the lyrics that way.
Absolutely. And I can't anymore. I'm married, but I totally am listening to it. I'm like, we've all been through something like what you're writing about. And just to speak further to what you're mentioning there, the full album Into the Deep came out November 25th of 2022, and that's where the anchor has come from. You have a great way of putting that. You did a great job of putting that album together with all those songs. And so I do want to talk about the anchor, and that's going to be part of this, but I'd love to talk about the album as well in full. It's your debut album. And you started writing in 2015, is that correct?
Yeah, 2014, 2015, around there is when I started writing I Want You, which is the first song on the album.
So that's where I'd love to just, because I think the way that it's structured as an album is such a journey. I think you get to the sad songs and they suck in terms of what happened to you.
Yeah.
They are fantastic compositionally, lyrically, but you know what I mean? Like you kind of get to those parts of you're like, oh man, but then it ends with Launch Forth. Okay, we're going to get into this because I love the way that this goes. Talk to me about how it took shape, because I Want You and The Anchor are both great love songs. And then you start feeling this thing with Apathy, and then The Girl You Used to Know, Good to Hear, Listen to Your Voice. And then people listen to the album because it's a great journey. Talk to me about how the album took shape.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you got that whole like concept album, and because some people just listen to the songs and they're like, oh, this is a bop, but they don't hear the story, and that's exactly what it is. It's a story of becoming. So even though I may not have written the songs in that order, they fell into place that way. I was like, this is going to tell a story. And that's why I just kind of struggle when I'm talking about the the album, because I'm like, this is when she, and then I'm like, well,
yeah.
when I mean,
Yeah.
I get like really mixed up there. I never know how to talk about it, but this is the part of the story.
Yeah.
When this happens. So yeah, I Want You and The Anchor I Want You is the crush. So it's before you actually know the person. So you just see them. You're like, he's cute, And then The Anchor is falling in love. So that was the true, I wrote it when I was a year into my relationship at the time. And and it was really about going through hardships through the falling in love and still having a really strong foundation there. So that was The Anchor. Then we get into Apathy, which is starting to get annoyed with your partner. Little things are bugging you. And I wasn't even going to put that song on the album. And I played it live at a songwriter circle, and the guys were like, I feel attacked. And the girls were like, yes, I love this song.
Jenny, I felt attacked. Okay, I like, you know what, just my younger self, I was like, what's the problem with playing video games? But that's okay. I totally get it. Sorry to cut you off, but I was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is the perspective I missed.
And it went over so well, and I was like, there's no way I can't put this on the album.
No.
And it fit in right there, right in between, the love story and the breakup. And then the breakup, obviously, is The Girl You Used to Know. Even though it sounds really upbeat and happy, it's like, I'm getting out of this relationship kind of thing. Because the lyrics are actually really sad in The Girl You Used to Know. Even though it's production is like kind of like a dance, kind of like old person kind of dance.
It's traditional. I love it.
Yeah,
And I want to
yeah.
talk about that after too, is the mix
Yeah.
of sounds you have in the album. But
Yeah.
exactly.
And so I mean, you picture, your aunt and uncle dancing to that song, at a concert or whatever. So then you said the real sad songs start. Good to Her was my last song I wrote to put into the album, and I'm really proud of that. The way that the lyrics flowed for that song. It was absolutely like, just when you look at the composition of like the rhyming and stuff like that, I was like, how did I write that? But I really wrote that from a journal entry. Like it was something that I actually felt when I was going through. I may have came home slightly intoxicated one night and creep my ex. You never do that. Never ever do that.
If there's a time to do it, it's when you're slightly intoxicated.
I know.
On your own.
I know.
Sorry, there's never a time to do it.
There's never a time to do it, but if you're gonna do it, at least make a really good song out of it.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Okay, that too. I can't. Yeah. Totally.
But I did that, and then I started writing my journal, just kind of like a letter. And then later, I looked at this journal entry. I was like, "There's something here," and then I wrote that song. And then Listen to My Voice is obviously the depression after just kind of talking myself out of that low point. And that one I wrote a while ago, but I used to tell people with Listen to My Voice, I used to tell people that I wrote it for a friend, because I was like, this is so personal, it's so deep, it's so, I'm going through something, and like, it's gonna be okay kind of thing. And I used to tell people I wrote it for my best friend, but I wrote it because that was the words I needed to hear. And I did write it for other people. I did, because I knew that those words were the things that people needed to hear when they were going through something. So that was Listen to My Voice. And then we get into I Do, which is like the big healing stage, and, self-love, I can buy myself flowers.
Yeah. There you go.
And then Launch Forth is really the becoming, the starting a new journey. And, that could have easily been, the beginning of the album, but I put it at the end because it was like, that was what this album really meant to me. Launch forth into the deep, face your fears, get over your perfectionism, and release this album. And that was the message that song really meant to me, and I put it at the end because it was really the start of something beautiful. So yeah,
amazing. Yeah. And that, everything you said totally took that from listening to this. Again, a journey, heartbreak, but also that ending. Man, what a great way, because not only I think is it about what I felt was as, again, starting anew for yourself, but also it kind of I also felt was like you starting your music career as well, right? It's like okay, here we go, this is the first project, and like you said, overcoming the fears of writing the album, getting the album produced and set out there, and as it's called, Launch Forth. I guess you could have called it Into the Deep. Yeah. But you called it Launch Forth.
Yeah, so I called the song Launch Forth because I wanted, I could have easily called it all Launch Forth into the Deep, You know what I mean? I could have
Yes.
called the song that, and the
or
album.
in brackets, right? They always put like in brackets
Yeah.
or something.
I mean, really, I wanted the song to be separate from the album. I
Cool.
think, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted, you know, the song, like, we launched forth before I hate myself. We launched forth in before the album was actually released. So yeah, so we did that, and I knew I really wasn't sure what to call the album. I had Into the Deep just because it was like it encapsulated all the songs, you know. It like all my songs have deep meaning, you know. So Launch Forth was almost like, yeah, it's the end song, it's, you know, go forth, you know, do great things. But Into the Deep was like the whole album, you know, getting into these deep emotions that I've been tapping into, you know, all that good stuff. So yeah. And also I have a really funny story about about how this album was named. So I was singing, you know, Trent McClellan.
Uh-oh, I don't.
He's on Saturday Night Live, or not Saturday Night Live. Sorry, the comedy show in the Canadian comedy show. Oh my gosh, this hour has 22 minutes. Sorry, Trent. But he's a fantastic human being, and he was there at a show, and he was introducing me, and in my description, he said, you know, she's releasing her album in November or whatever. And he got, so this was our fourth time doing the show, so we got really, you know, comfortable.
Got it. Okay.
And he was like, he yelled out to me, I was on the side of the stage, he yelled out to me, there's thousands of people in this audience. He goes, Jenny, what's the name of your album? I was like, oh no, it's not named yet. Anyway, so I was like, the first thing that came to mind was Into the Deep. So I said that, and then he was like, okay, buy Jenny's album, it's called Into the Deep. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's the title now.
Wow, that's actually so cool. I love that. It's like you just completely thrown on the spot to come up with the name of your project.
I mean,
amazing.
It was a working title anyway, but I still have to tell him that story because he, you know, it was absolutely hilarious. But
well, I'll clip this. You can send this to him.
I will.
You can get that. That's amazing. Well, I was just thinking, you know, before you kind of told a funny story, I was going to go deep because called it Into the Deep. No, it's all good. Because, you know, again, obviously, you know, relationships and breakups are tough. You know, it's an emotional roller coaster as you feel listening to this. And, you know, you get to listen to my voice as you talk about sort of being the deeper song, right? Kind of telling yourself the self-love song with that. And I do. And I apologize if I don't have the right terminology, but you do struggle with bipolar.
Yeah.
So I, you know, in knowing that, I felt less of a relationship type song. I feel like a lot of these could be taken relationship songs, but you know, when you go through that, the you know, the mental struggles that come from this, that come from, you know, following a song like Good to Her, right? I mean, like the things that come out of that become listen to my voice. Is that mainly what that song is speaking to? You know, you talk about not just writing it, you write it for yourself, and you talk about being for a friend, but how does a process like that help when struggling with bipolar disorder?
Oh my gosh, it's a love-hate relationship because, you know, it's just like journaling. It's like it's getting something, because with bipolar you just feel so deeply, you know. I feel the extent of my emotions very very easily, but I'm very fortunate because I can express those emotions, you know. And I think I say I struggle with bipolar, but I also kind of think that bipolar is partially my superpower, you know, some days. Because I really can tap into those emotions and I can create something from them. So I was just talking about this the other day with my cousin. I was like, the best songs that I've written, I've been like in a really not good place. And, you know, some, like, you know, Listen to My Voice, Good to Her, you know, even I was struggling and I was like telling myself, you know, like I'm healing, you know, and this is a healing song, and getting those lyrics out, those really important words out. And but yeah, it's part of the healing process for me. You know, it helps me get some thoughts to paper, and something about, you know, taking, you know, so with bipolar, I have racing thoughts. So like typical people can have 10, 20, 30 thoughts a minute. I have like 100, 200. It's a lot. Yeah. So even when I'm nervous, even a little bit probably now, I'm speaking so fast, right? And it's because the wheels are turning up there a little too quickly. And, but again, something about slowing my thoughts, taking them and then writing them down. It just really, it's a release, and it is something, it solidifies your thoughts, but it also creates it into something that other people can relate to, and they can identify with. So, you know, you may not, or at least feel, you know what I mean? Like you might not, you know, some people may have never struggled with depression. They may have never struggled with anxiety. They may have never struggled with mental health disorders, but you listen to my voice, and you can still feel the hurt and the sadness just from how the way the lyrics and the way I wrote it. Do you know what I mean? Like you can still feel that feeling, even if you've never actually experienced it. If you've experienced it, even more so. You know what I mean? So it's definitely part of the healing process for me, because it gets thoughts into something tangible.
Now, did that have a part in you becoming a songwriter? Did you like, were you writing your thoughts down and then you decide I mean, I know that the East Coast is a very musical place. I know that you're very much surrounded by music. I'm not saying that everybody on the East Coast tries to become a songwriter or anything like that, but
we do.
You know, you do. Okay, good. All right. So that has been all right. Solidified for me. Thank you. Validated. I guess what I'm trying to say is, did you start out you just journaling, writing to get the thoughts out of your mind, and then all of a sudden you started turning that into music?
Yeah. So a lot of my songs start as like journal entries or poems, you know, because you have this thought, I have this concept of, you know, creating whatever song I'm creating. Okay. And then I pull from those kind of things. I mean, a song, if you look at the lyrics of my songs, actually, and actually in the physical copy of the CD, it's the lyrics are actually, because it has a little lyric booklet, and the lyrics, I got my marketing person to actually write it the way I wrote it, which was in poem stanzas, right? Cool. So, yeah, so they're all written that way. And but yeah, like, I mean, I've been singing since I've been very, very young, like super duper young, but writing, you know, we were taught poems in school. We were taught how to write, those kind of things, and I've always excelled in doing that. And then really when it started solidifying for me was in high school, when I was like, wow, I can actually like do this. Like I can, you know, in 2014, 2015, I wrote I Want You, and I was like, this is like, okay, this is, you know, and I submitted it to East Coast Music Awards and I won. So it was like 15, I don't know how old I was, 18, math. I was 18, and it was like, it was a really cool experience, but it did validate me a little bit, because I was like, you know, I've never really done this before. I know I've done it, you know, a little bit in the past, you know, as a kid, you know, I wrote all these poems and things like that, and, you know, all that good stuff. But it really started solidifying like high school, because then I was like, okay, I can actually do this, and I can actually put pretty good lyrics to songs.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one part. And then you got to bring the instrument into it. There's such a great mix of, I mean, it's billed as a country folk pop album, and it has obviously all of those tinges to it. But, man, so good, so catchy. And you worked with producer Clint Curtis out there, who's worked with Jason Benoit and Justin Fancy, who is actually, I got to get him back on. He was on episode 3 when
amazing.
I first launched this thing, I think. When his first album came out, and he's been doing great things as well. And do you know Justin? Have you worked with him?
Yes.
Or have you talked?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know him. Yeah, I know of him a little bit. I've spoken to him a couple times. Yeah.
Well, again, that's like somebody asking, "Oh, you're from Canada. Do you know Joe?" Right? So like that was a stupid question for you.
No.
Do you know Justin? You're both from Newfoundland, right?
We've been to a couple music and L events together. So yeah, no, we've definitely crossed paths a couple times.
Awesome. So talk to me about the process working with Clint Curtis when you bring him a song, when you brought him one of these songs, because I believe this whole album was this virtual. You recorded, sent things to him, and he worked out of Sevenview Recording that way.
So this was the coolest process ever. So I produced myself. And did all the things, all the mixing. I'm not a producer, so but you're
on your way.
I'm on my way. I'm working with, anyway, I'm trying to get there. But I tried just to kind of prove to myself it would be super fitting for the song, prove to myself that I could do something start to finish for like very low budget. I think on that whole song the most I spent was the money for the pizza for the music video. So I'm not kidding.
You can hear that in that song, and I absolutely love it. I love the closeness of that song.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, and it like I really wanted to do it from start to finish and like just know the process, because I didn't even know how to release a song. I didn't know what the process was. I didn't know I had to go to like a distributor. I didn't know any of the things. So I took the song that I wrote, and I was like, this is my latest song that I wrote at the time. I didn't have a close I did have a connection with it, but it wasn't like I Want You that I've been singing for 17 million years. You know what I mean? So I've been hearing in my head. So I took I Do, I produced it from start to finish. Then we went to Claire Follett. So she did The Girl You Used to Know. She did the mixing and mastering, or mixing of that song. And you can kind of tell on the album that The Girl You Used to Know is very country. It's very different than the rest of the album. And I think it just adds a little bit of quirkiness to the whole sound of the album, Absolutely. Some people were like, you should disclude I Do and The Girl You Used to Know. And I was like, no, I want, this is part of the story. I don't want to release an EP and just have, that couple, 5 songs. I want the 8 songs there,
See, I guess I could see that side of things, but I'm also like, man, this is like your first album, like explore, right?
Yeah.
Like see what things work and feel good. And I mean, you look at other albums across centuries, I shouldn't say centuries, decades. And it's like, some albums are like so all over the place, and that's okay. Sorry, again, I'm interrupting your thought process here, but I absolutely I love that there's so many different. Right, Apathy is such great country rock. I Do is 100% singer songwriter sitting there with the guitar, just in the studio yourself. And I Want You is a great, again, and The Anchor, great pop country tune. So I think it really lends to the whole feeling of the album as well. So I'm on your side. Forget those other people.
No, I mean, and it made sense from like a marketing perspective that to put just the 6 songs that Clint produced together. It did. But just from with any piece of advice that I take from industry, it's like what aligns with my purpose. You know what I mean? Am I trying to sell millions? Probably not. Am I trying to get a message out? Yes. That's my purpose, and I really did take that into consideration when I was making that decision. And ultimately I made the decision to keep all of them because I wanted, even though it might not, flow as well, or you throw the girl you used to know in there and it's like completely different. But it just spices. I found it spiced it up. I got Clint to remaster both of them so that they flowed into the album, and then I got to Clint for Launch Forth, and Clint is like so phenomenal. Like I say this all the time, he took what I heard in my head when I was writing the song, and he just made it. Like, he just made it happen. Like, I would send him the demo, he would send me back, everything but the vocals, and I'd be like, how did you do this? Like, how did you create this? And I would just send him a couple, sample songs. Like, this is kind of the sound I want. This is my first time doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. But, like, this is kind of what I want. And he would come back and just nail it every single time.
Now, obviously, being your first album, how did you go about reaching out to Clint Curtis? Did you, producers worked with some great names. And I'm just thinking, when you're starting out, it's just have to have a connection to him. Did you just send him an email? Did you meet him at an event?
I literally just went to his little inbox thing on his website, and I sent him a little demo, and I was like, hey, like, this is my stuff. Cool. I'm from Mount Pearl. I'm from Newfoundland. I really want you to work with me. And he was like, I really like your stuff. Let's get started. So, it was just kind of shot in the dark, like everything that I do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's more simple than you expect, right? It's just kind of like, just send out that message. I think ultimately, as it is with anything, like even just being able to get talking to different industry people, is you have to have good music, right? You got to have something that resonates with people, and obviously that was the case. But sometimes it's just as easy. That's that easy. Just shoot an email and make sure you got something for them to listen to.
I think Clint too. Like, Clint really has a specific sound. So I was listening to a lot of what he was producing, and I was like, this is the sound that I want. This is the sound that I have in my head. So I think if I were to give any kind of advice to someone starting out, it's like, find someone who's producing stuff that you feel would align with your product. I listen to his stuff by he produces a lot of Robin Slade, and she's phenomenal country pop artist from Newfoundland, and I was listening to a lot of her stuff, and I was like, this is a sound. This is the one I want. And I listened to it, and I was like, this is amazing. So I reached out to him. He liked my stuff, and he decided to do it. The hard thing about finding producers and finding people to work with, one, it's finding the right person who's going to get your sound. But two, getting the funding. Like, that's the biggest cost that you're going to have is your producer, right? Maybe a music video if you're doing that stuff, and getting it done professionally. But, that's the biggest cost. So the biggest, hill for getting anything produced or, getting a CD out there is the cost.
Yeah, like the producing is one part. It's the most important part because that's the product. But then once you're done with the product, then you need the money for the marketing, for the publicist. So, like, to your point, the whole process is just expensive. You have to put the money where the music is, or to make it sound the way that you want it to sound. And then, I feel like often it's just, now you've got it and people are sitting on great stuff and they just put it out themselves, which sometimes you have to, but if you're not sometimes, most of the time you have to, but if you're expecting to be heard around the world, you need the marketing as well. So to your point about funding, how'd you do it?
Yeah, so I've been working with a manager, Derek Sturge. He's from Pharaoh's Music, and he's a phenomenal human being. This is his retirement project. Like, he reaches out to artists, and he's like, hey, I want to help you get your music released.
Awesome.
And he's from Newfoundland. He went to Berkeley for fun. Just for fun. No, again, for his retirement. No, I say that, but for his retirement project. And he went and he did business music management, and he came back and he was like, this is my passion project. I really want to do this for artists in Newfoundland. So he reached out to me. He really liked my originals. He seen me perform, and he heard of me through a couple different people. So he reached out to me and he was like, hey, I want to help you release your first album. So I was like, this is a godsend. So he really helped me. The first step was applying for funding. So we got the application together. It's really important to know what different funding sources are looking for what. So like for in Newfoundland, we have Arts NL, and we have Music NL. So those are the two big ones, and then Factor, which is Canada-wide. So with Music NL, they're really looking at your marketing plan. So I applied for Music NL and didn't get it the first time. I actually just got the funding for Music NL the second time. I got that a couple days ago, actually. So we're going to see where that goes. But yeah, so they're really looking at your marketing plan. Whereas the Arts NL is looking at it's something called artistic merit, which is like very... It's hard to actually explain what artistic merit is, but it's almost like what is the meaning behind your art? What is the merit? How valuable is it? What value is it?
Right. What's it going to mean to the community? What's it going to mean to somebody else? Right.
Exactly. So again, knowing what each funding source is looking for is really important, because if I were to submit the same application that I submitted for Music NL to Arts NL, I might not have gotten the Arts NL, you know? So, and it's, again, there's funding sources across all Canada for specific provinces and things like that. So I'm assuming it's very similar processes for, you know, all the Canadian provinces, but I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? Right? It's a great point, and I'm going to put some links in the show notes here just to, you know, so people can know there are provincial funding. I think there's Nova Scotia definitely has one, and Manitoba, obviously Ontario. So yeah, you're right. So check out the show notes for links to that. That's a great point, and a great point to understand that understand what they're looking for, because it could be just because you put something together for Factor doesn't mean you can just rehash it for, you know, for Music NL or Ontario Creates or something like that, right? It's, wow, interesting.
You can definitely take, like, the bare bones of it, you know, like the structure and things like that. Like, we took the same structure, like, you know, the artist bio, the artist, you know, the meaning behind the songs, all that stuff, like, that can be copied over. It's almost like a resume. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You can take a couple things, you know, from the applications and start with that. But again, your focus, I think it just has to be, you know, for what they want. You know, you're really, really putting a bulk of your writing into a marketing plan or into your artistic merit kind of thing. Right?
Okay, cool. Well, with that funding secured, then you got funding on the way. That must mean that you're going to have a busy 2023 outside of maybe potentially recording a new project. You're also joining, what is it, the Music NL producers? Oh, sorry.
Audio production program. So basically it's a mentorship program. So Denise Dion is my mentor, which she's really phenomenal. And so they're helping me with that. We are supposed to meet this week, actually. And basically just going through the basics, because I'm going through trying to figure out, like, Logic, and, like, I was using GarageBand beforehand. And basically they're just helping me with learning Logic and actually learning the shortcuts and learning how to get something really quickly and how to make something sound good. Sort of the presets, the things that, you know, you sort of start with and work from. That's amazing. That's amazing. Is that something you, like, again, you do your own thing, but obviously you've wanted to get into that, just understanding? I guess here's the question. What's the importance of understanding the process of production as a songwriter? So I mean, I produced all my vocals on the album because Clint is in Springdale. So so I have my own setup here. The vocals actually I produced them in Logic. But he just wanted like bare bones, like nothing on it. Just give me the give me the bare bones, give me raw vocals. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So, but yeah, I recorded it in my closet with a blanket over my head, like literally like that is, authentic as possible. And then he did his magic with it and it was phenomenal. So, cool. But yeah, it's really important to know that process. 'Cause again, like for me, it's the demos. If you don't have a good demo, it's really hard to like, it's not pertinent. I mean, Clint, he was like, send me an iPhone clipping, what I mean? Like he knew that my songs were good. So he could take whatever. But like, I mean, if you're, pitching to people or you're trying to do anything else, I mean, me and Clint have a relationship now, so I'm pretty sure I could like send him a tape recording and he would figure something out. But I mean, for someone starting out, it's good to have a really good demo because you kind of get the sound and like for me, like I'm starting to figure out like what songs I want like drums in and things like that and like different instruments in. Like I didn't know that with The Girl You Used to Know. Like I didn't know what instruments.
You had to build on it for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know what instruments like sounded good. I didn't know like I still don't know half the instruments that Clint put in the songs. I'm like, is that synth? Is that what that sounds like? No, but like learning that again, then you're able to communicate your sound better. You know what I mean? You're able to communicate like, I like the sound of this instrument more, or I like the sound of how my vocals sound in this. And that's kind of how me and Denise are tackling that. It's like, I like the way my vocals sound in Launch Forth better than I like the way they sound in I Do. How do I get from I Do to Launch Forth? You know what I mean? So that's how we're kind of tackling it.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah, start the good demos, having something that you can work from, have a foundation and build from there. So just lastly on that part, you send demos to Clint in order to like understand like how you guys are going to work with it, and then once you are comfortable with how you want to build on it, you go back and record it not with your iPhone, for example, right? Then you kind of record it that way.
So with me, I had the demos in GarageBand, just created. So I sent him, I had the Focusrite, I had the Rode microphone, and I guitared it. I literally YouTubed how to record a guitar in GarageBand and with a mic and a like, I don't know how else to describe
where do you put the mic when recording an acoustic guitar?
Right. And like, but also like, do I plug it in? Like, what? Yeah, just those kind of things. And there's different techniques, obviously. But I just kind of did that. And then I recorded on the Focusrite and used the GarageBand. And I recorded all the demos for all of my album on just the Focusrite and the Rode. So, and used GarageBand. So it was like, but again, depending on the producer, I mean, if you can hear a video of a song and know that it's a good demo, you know what I mean? So some people, like you said, with Claire, I sent her the demo on my home studio, and then she kind of created a demo from that and was like, we went into the studio and we created a demo from that to kind of see what instruments would sound good. And then once we solidified that, then we created the final product with live instruments. So we got people in the studio recording. So that's one process. And then the other process, like with Clint, Clint was just like, I sent him the demo from my studio. He sent me like a version back that had all the instruments in it. And it was perfect, and then I just laid the vocals over it. Like, it was so easy. That's cool. But he just knew. Like it was, but he has so much experience. You know, he has so much behind him. So it's just he's been playing for years. He's been recording for years. So it's very evident how easy that was and how different that process was, I guess.
Yeah. Well, experience, right? And that's the important thing too, right? Work with the people that know what they're doing when you can, right? I mean, it's great to have a team to experiment behind and experiment with and build with. But if you can find somebody like you did with Clint to work with, then that process is going to be pretty smooth, I imagine.
And if you can afford them.
And if you can afford them.
I'm just throwing it out
that's
there.
Always, you know, that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, you know, you can go about recording in your bedroom, but you know, if you want the goods, you got to put the money into it. Absolutely.
And like, there's something to be said, like you said, about too, like, you know, if you're just starting, like, I mean, with I Do, like, there was something about I Do that it is so raw and it is so, it feels like it's live. Like, there's something to be said about that too. I know a couple people who just, you know, they're recording, like you said, in their basement with their home studio, and they're just getting a product out there. There's something to be said about that too, because, you know, as soon as you get something out there, then people listen to it and they hear it and they say, wow, this is good. You know, even though it's not the best production, even though it's not the best, you know, mixing,
right? They
hear your songwriting, they hear, you know what I mean? So if you, I mean, I did I Do from start to finish $200, like, you know, and that I didn't spend any more than that. And I had a full music video. I got it produced. I produced it. I got it mastered for $50. Like, I literally just did the bare minimum, and I did a full project on bare minimum budget. And there's something to be said about that too, because it shows how, you know, especially for funding, if you can do that and you can do it on your own, I think that actually contributed to why I'm getting funding, because I did a full project by myself from start to finish. It's like, she can do this by herself. Like, you know what I mean?
That's part of it too, right? It's not only can you do it, but you want to do it, right? It's not just easy work to go out and record and then do a music video, right? You don't just, like, you have to have passion. You have to have a love of doing that, and they have to be able to see that. And that is a great point, because it's stepping stones, right? It's not saying you have to go out and get a producer of this, or you have to get this, or you have to get that. You start, you understand, you know, how you can build on that, get out there, because if that's what you love to do, that's what, you know, you need to do. You have to get it out any way that you can. So new music 2023, is that also coming?
So I mean, we're gonna try and take the album right now and just really push, like, like you said, huge. with the singles and things like that.
I mean, it was released in November. What am I saying? Of course, it's like it's brand new, like, right?
So it is pretty brand new. I am writing. I will say that.
You have to be.
I have to be. And like I said, I have 3 or 4 songs now. Like, when I released Into the Deep, that was all the songs, most of the songs I've ever written. You know, there's only a couple that, you know, didn't make the cut. But they may make the cut next time, who knows? But yeah, I really again, in the past couple of weeks, I've been writing, and I'm like, okay, what's the concept for the next album? And the thing is with music, it's like, I feel like I'm always trying to catch my breath, because it's like, I just released that. That was one of the biggest things I've ever done in my whole life. And now it's like, okay, what's next? But again, trying to savor that album and savor, again, like, releasing the anchor after was a really interesting strategy. I never really knew that people did that, but we talked to Carrie at Bad Parade, and she was like, yeah, like, we can do that, you know, that's a thing. And it's
ride it, don't like slow things down, ride your wave. Absolutely. It is new. I can't believe I'm like, whoa, new music, what a loser. No. It's like absolutely, it's the 100%, ride the wave.
I think, like, and I keep saying this to everyone that I'm talking to, but like, with Into the Deep, like, we started in January, and it was like, okay, let's get this released. And I was just in such a rush. You know what I mean? Like, and I just wanted to get, okay, I'm going to record I'm going to get it out. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it. Okay, Girl Used to Know, let's get it. That's one of my best songs. Let's do it. Boom. And then with Clint, I was like hounding him every day, like, when is this going to be ready? You know what I mean? So it was like, because we had very strict deadlines in my head, and also for funding purposes or whatever, which, I mean, funding is a little bit, you know, it's looser. You know, if you have deadlines and funding, normally it's not, you know, strict deadlines.
Okay.
But for me, in my head, first time, I was like, okay, this has to be done. This has to be done. It's releasing in November. That's it. Okay. But I think with the next album, the thing that I would do differently is record the whole album first instead of doing it song by song. Like, for me, I did I Do, and then I did The Girl Used to Know, and I released it. Like, I released them after they were done. Same thing with Launch Forth. I did it, released it. Whereas this next album, I think I'm just, as soon as they're done writing, like I'm done writing them, I'll get them produced. But I won't release them right away. And then once I have a full album, then I'll pick the best songs off the album, release them as singles, and then release the full album after, if that makes sense. I think that's kind of the strategy that I'm going to go with next time, because I think if I were, not that I live with any regrets whatsoever, but I think that, again, I still would have chosen Launch Forth, and I still would have chosen The Anchor and things like that for my singles. But I probably would have done the single releasing a little differently once I heard all the songs and compared them to each other, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a learning process, right? You go through it, you release one thing one way, and you take a look at it, you see how it works for you, whether it did or it didn't, or things you want to adjust, and that's exactly what you're doing. And I think, you know, making sure that you take a look at your release and your project, any project that way, you know, from one to the other, whether it's your first to your second or your fourth to your fifth. How'd it feel? What do you want to do next time? What do you want to do differently? How do you want to keep things the same? So I'm sure you'll be adjusting the way that you release for every project. But
definitely.
That's great. Well, Into the Deep, your debut album is available for listening. The Anchor, released as a single on January 27th. Jenny, fantastic music. Like, it's all fantastic. Sad songs, but so good. Again, so relatable. They just feel so real, because they are. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me about the album and the single on the Release Day Series podcast.
Thank you so much.
You can discover more podcast episodes as well as our limited video series on our website, www.releasedayseries.com. And if you'd like to support the show, we've added that option to the website as well. Send us $1, $3, $5, whatever you'd like. Any support helps. But most importantly, we appreciate you listening and sharing the podcast.